The cold is what I remember most. Not the Chinese, not the fighting, the cold. 30 below zero. That's what they told us later. 30 below, and that's not counting the wind chill. Cold enough that your spit would freeze before it hit the ground. Cold enough that morphine froze in the syringes. Cold enough that rifle bolts froze shut and you had to piss on them to get them working again. Cold enough to kill you just as dead as a bullet. November 1950. I was 20 years old, a rifleman with the 1st Marine Division in North Korea. We'd landed at Incheon in September, pushed north through Seoul, kept going. The war was almost over, they told us. The North Koreans were beaten. We'd be home by Christmas. Then the Chinese came. My name's Tom Cafferata. Well, everyone called me Hector. Don't ask me why, I don't remember anymore. I'm from New Jersey. Signed up for the Marines in '49 because I didn't know what else to do with my life. Figured I'd serve my 4 years, see the world, get out. Ended up in Korea instead. Didn't even know where Korea was when they told us we were shipping out. We moved up to the Chosin Reservoir in late November. It's in the northern mountains near the Chinese border. The brass wanted to push to the Yalu River, end the war. We were strung out along a narrow mountain road surrounded by peaks on all sides. Perfect terrain for an ambush. Should have known better. The 7th Marines, the 5th Marines, we were all up there. Thousands of Marines spread out over 70 miles of mountain road. Supply lines stretched thin. Temperature dropping every day. We were wearing whatever cold weather gear we could scrounge, but it wasn't enough. Never enough. I remember my squad leader, Sergeant Benson from Alabama, looking at the mountains around us. "This don't feel right," he said. "Too quiet, too exposed." He was right. The Chinese were up there, watching, waiting. Hundreds of thousands of them. Maybe more. We didn't know it yet, but we'd walked right into a trap. My fire team was good guys. There was Kenny Benson, not related to the sergeant, different Benson, from Ohio. Big guy, corn-fed farm kid. Private Jimenez from Texas, always cracking jokes. And Corporal Davis, our team leader, from somewhere in the Midwest. Quiet guy, competent. We set up positions outside this village called Udamni on November 27th. Dug in as best we could. The ground was frozen solid, like digging through concrete. Got our sleeping bags ready. Posted watch. It was cold. Jesus Christ, it was cold. The kind of cold that hurts, that makes your bones ache, that makes you think maybe dying wouldn't be so bad if it meant you'd be warm. We heated up some sea rations on a little stove, ate in silence, tried to stay warm, tried not to think about how exposed we were, how far from safety. Kenny was on first watch. I crawled into my sleeping bag around 2100 hours. The bag was rated for cold weather, but it wasn't enough. I was shivering so hard I could barely sleep. I remember thinking, just get through the night. Tomorrow we'll push forward. Maybe the brass will realize this is stupid and pull us back. Maybe the war really is almost over. I fell asleep listening to the wind howl through the mountains. I woke up to bugles and screams and gunfire. The Chinese had come. The bugles. That's what I heard first. High-pitched, eerie sound cutting through the night. Then the whistles. Then the screaming. Thousands of voices yelling in Chinese, getting closer. I was out of my sleeping bag in seconds, grabbing for my M1. My hands were so cold I could barely feel the rifle. Kenny was firing already, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness. "They're everywhere," he was shouting. "They're fucking everywhere." He wasn't exaggerating. They came in waves, human waves. Hundreds of Chinese soldiers pouring down from the mountains, blowing bugles, throwing grenades, firing burp guns. The sound was overwhelming. Gunfire, explosions, screaming in English and Chinese and Korean. I started firing. Couldn't see much, just shapes in the darkness, muzzle flashes, shadows moving. Fired at anything that moved. The Chinese were so close I couldn't miss. One came right at our position. I shot him. He went down. Another took his place. Shot him too. Another. They just kept coming. Grenade! I dove. The explosion threw frozen dirt everywhere. My ears were ringing. Got back up, kept firing. The barrel of my M1 was getting hot. Only warm thing in the whole goddamn country. Jimenez was hit. Took a round in the shoulder. He went down screaming. Davis dragged him behind cover, tried to patch him up. But it was chaos. Too dark, too cold, too many Chinese. My rifle jammed. Bolt froze. I grabbed a dead Marine's weapon, didn't know whose, and kept firing. Later, I'd feel bad about that. Taking a dead man's rifle. But in the moment, you do what you have to do. The Chinese were using grenades, potato mashers, they called them. You'd hear them land, that metallic clunk, and you had maybe 2 seconds to react. Kick them away, throw them back, dive for cover. I kicked one away. It exploded 10 feet from me. The concussion knocked me flat, ears ringing worse, tasted blood, got up anyway, kept fighting. Kenny went down, took a burst from a burp gun across the legs. He was screaming, clutching his thighs, blood everywhere, black in the darkness. Corpseman, corpseman. But the corpsmen were busy. Everyone was hit. Everyone was bleeding. Everyone was screaming. The first assault lasted maybe 20 minutes, felt like hours. Then the Chinese pulled back, not retreating, just regrouping. We could hear them out there in the darkness, talking, moving, getting ready for the next wave. Sound off, Sergeant Benson was yelling. Who's hit? Who needs ammo? Half the squad was casualties. Kenny couldn't walk. Jimenez's arm was useless. 3 guys were dead. I'd seen them go down, but hadn't registered it until now. Just more bodies in the frozen dirt. I checked my ammunition. 2 clips left. Maybe 16 rounds. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Davis was passing around ammo from the dead. Made sense. They didn't need it anymore. We did. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Couldn't tell if it was the cold or the adrenaline or fear. Probably all 3. They're coming again, someone shouted. The bugles started, the whistles, the screaming. Second wave hit even harder than the first. More Chinese, more grenades, more bodies piling up in front of our positions. I was firing on automatic, not thinking, just pointing and shooting. Point, shoot, point, shoot. The Chinese were climbing over their own dead, using the bodies as cover. Still coming. A Chinese soldier made it into our foxhole, just appeared out of the darkness. I didn't have time to shoot. We grappled, fought hand to hand in the frozen dirt. He was trying to stab me with a bayonet. I grabbed his rifle, twisted, got it away from him, beat him with it until he stopped moving. First man I killed with my hands. Wouldn't be the last. The night went on forever, wave after wave, attack after attack. The Chinese would hit us. We'd drive them back. They'd regroup and hit us again. Over and over, no end to them. Dawn came slowly. Gray light filtering through the smoke and haze. I could finally see what we were facing. Bodies, hundreds of them. Chinese dead piled up in front of our positions. Some were so close I could have reached out and touched them. The snow was red with blood. Theirs, ours, all mixed together. Our position looked like hell. Foxholes blown apart, equipment scattered, wounded men lying in the snow, dead men frozen in the positions where they fell. Kenny was still alive, but in bad shape. Both legs hit. He was going into shock. We tried to warm him up, but there was no warmth anywhere. The sun was up, but it didn't help. Still 30 below. The attacks stopped with daylight. The Chinese pulled back into the mountains. We could see them up there, thousands of them, surrounding us, waiting. That's when we got word. The radio crackled to life. Command was talking. We were surrounded, cut off. The Chinese had hit every Marine position along the reservoir. Thousands of them, maybe 100,000. Nobody knew for sure. We were outnumbered, outgunned, trapped. Orders are to hold position, the radio said. Reinforcements coming. But we all knew there were no reinforcements. Everyone was surrounded. Everyone was fighting for their lives. Sergeant Benson looked at what was left of the squad. Maybe half of us still combat effective. The rest wounded or dead. Well, boys, he said, looks like we're in for it. I looked at the mountains, at the Chinese positions, at the bodies in the snow, at my frozen hands barely able to hold my rifle. Thought about home, about New Jersey, about warmth, about not being here. But I was here. We all were. And the Chinese weren't done with us. Not by a long shot. Night would come again in 12 hours. And when it did, they'd come again. All we could do was wait. And freeze. And try to stay alive until the next attack. Welcome to the Chosin Reservoir. Welcome to hell frozen over. The days blurred together. November 28th, 29th, 30th. Each one the same nightmare. Freezing during the day, fighting at night, watching men die from bullets and cold in equal measure. The cold was an enemy just as deadly as the Chinese, maybe worse. You could shoot at Chinese soldiers. You couldn't shoot the cold. Frostbite set in fast. My fingers turned white, then gray. Lost feeling in my toes on day 2. Couldn't tell if I was wearing boots or not. Just numb stumps at the end of my legs. Kenny died on the 2nd day. Not from his wounds, from the cold. We'd gotten him patched up, stopped the bleeding. But we couldn't keep him warm. He just faded. Went to sleep and didn't wake up. Froze to death in his sleeping bag. 22 years old. From Ohio. Dead because it was too cold and we didn't have enough blankets. We couldn't bury him. Ground was frozen solid. Just laid him with the other dead. Covered them with ponchos. The bodies froze within hours, stacked up like cordwood. The wounded were the worst. Guys with bullet wounds, shrapnel injuries, broken bones. In normal conditions, they'd have been evacuated, treated in hospitals, survived. But there was no evacuation, no hospitals, no way out. The road south was cut. The Chinese had it blocked. We were trapped. So the wounded just stayed, lying in the snow, freezing, dying slowly, calling for corpsmen who couldn't help them, calling for their mothers, calling for God. Morphine was frozen. Plasma was frozen. Blood was frozen. The corpsmen did what they could, but it wasn't much. Mostly they just held hands with dying men and lied to them about being okay. I helped move wounded to the aid station on day 3. Picked up a Marine, kid named Patterson, who'd been shot in the gut. He was frozen to the ground. We had to pry him loose. Left skin and cloth stuck to the ice. He screamed the whole way. Then he died. Just stopped. Mid-scream. Dead. We kept fighting every night. The Chinese would attack after dark. Same pattern. Bugles, whistles, human waves. We'd fight them off. They'd pull back, regroup, hit us again. We were running out of ammunition, running out of grenades, running out of men. On the 3rd night, they broke through our line. Chinese soldiers in our positions, fighting hand to hand, bayonets and rifle butts and bare hands. I killed 3 men that night in close combat, beat one to death with my helmet, stabbed another with his own bayonet, shot the 3rd at point-blank range. Their faces. I remember their faces. Young, scared, cold, just like us. But they were trying to kill me, so I killed them first. That's what it came down to. Kill or die. No middle ground, no mercy, just survival. Jimenez lost his arm, got hit again on the 4th day, shrapnel from a mortar, tore his arm apart at the elbow. Corpsman had to amputate right there in the foxhole. No anesthetic, no surgical tools, just a knife and a saw from the engineer kit. Jimenez screamed for 20 minutes while they cut. Then he passed out. Probably better that way. He died that night. Shock, blood loss, cold. Take your pick. We added him to the pile with Kenny and the others. The food was gone by day 4. Sea rations were frozen solid. Couldn't eat them even if you wanted to. Some guys tried. Broke teeth on frozen beans. Water was a problem, too. Everything was frozen. We'd melt snow in our mouths. Drink our own piss if we were desperate enough. Some guys were. I stopped feeling hungry after a while. Stopped feeling much of anything. Just cold and tired and numb. Sergeant Benson got hit on day 5. Took a round through the chest. Lung shot. He was coughing blood. Pink foam freezing on his lips. Take care of the boys, he told Davis. Then he died. Right there. No drama, no last words. Just dead. Davis became our squad leader. He was 23. In charge of 6 men. That's all we had left from the original 14. 6. We got orders on day 6. We were breaking out, fighting our way south. The whole division. Thousands of Marines, all trying to get through 70 miles of Chinese-controlled mountains to reach the coast. They called it a breakout. We called it a retreat. But Marines don't retreat. We were advancing in a different direction. Didn't matter what you called it. We were running for our lives. We blew up what we couldn't carry, destroyed equipment, burned supplies, loaded the wounded onto trucks. The dead we had to leave. No room, no time, no choice. I looked at Kenny's body as we moved out, covered in snow, frozen solid, just leaving him there in the mountains. Sorry, brother. Sorry we couldn't bring you home. The march south was hell, pure hell. Chinese attacking constantly, hitting the convoy from the hills, ambushes every mile. We'd fight, move, all day, all night, no rest. The cold was worse than the fighting. Guys were falling out, just sitting down in the snow, giving up, freezing to death while the convoy kept moving. Officers and NCOS would try to get them up, yell at them, drag them. But some of them just wouldn't move. Chose to freeze rather than keep going. Can't say I blamed them. Every step was agony, frost-bitten feet, exhausted, starving, cold beyond anything you can imagine. But we kept moving, because stopping meant dying. And Marines don't die sitting down. We fought through Chinese roadblocks, assaulted hills, took casualties every hour. The convoy stretched for miles. Trucks, tanks, artillery, walking wounded, all trying to get south, all trying to survive. I saw a truck go over the edge. Road was icy. Driver lost control. The whole truck, packed with wounded Marines, just slid off the road and tumbled down the mountain. We could hear them screaming as they fell. Then silence. Couldn't stop. Couldn't help them. Just kept moving. That's what Chosin was. A rolling nightmare. Death on all sides. Cold killing as many as bullets. No help coming, no rescue. Just us against the mountains and the Chinese and the cold. I stopped thinking about home. Stopped thinking about after. Just focused on the next step, the next hour, the next fight. Don't think. Don't feel. Just move. Just survive. One foot in front of the other. That's all that mattered. Keep moving or die. The breakout took 17 days. 17 days of fighting through mountains in sub-zero temperatures. 17 days of constant combat. 17 days of watching Marines die. We fought for every mile. The Chinese were everywhere, on the ridges, in the valleys, blocking the road. They'd hit us, we'd counterattack, clear them out, move forward. Then they'd hit us again. I lost track of how many firefights we were in. Dozens, maybe hundreds. They all blurred together. Shoot, move, automatic, mechanical. Davis got hit on day 8 of the breakout, took shrapnel in the face, lost an eye. Half his face was just gone, but he kept leading the squad, kept fighting. What else could he do? We were down to 4 men from the original squad. Me, Davis and 2 guys from another unit who'd attached to us when their squad was wiped out. Nobody even questioned it. We were all Marines, all trying to survive. Unit designations didn't matter anymore. The vehicles were dying as fast as the men, trucks breaking down in the cold, tanks freezing up. We'd strip them of weapons and ammunition and push them off the road, keep moving, always keep moving. I saw Marines carrying wounded on their backs, saw them sharing frozen sea rations, saw them giving their gloves to guys with worse frostbite, saw humanity in the middle of hell, but I also saw the other side. Saw guys steal food from the dead, saw them push wounded aside to get on trucks, saw them shoot wounded Chinese rather than take prisoners, saw what desperation does to people. We reached Hagaruri on day 9. It was a temporary stronghold. Marines had held it through the siege. They had supplies, medical facilities, an airstrip. The wounded were being evacuated by plane C-47S landing on a dirt strip in the middle of a battle, loading up with casualties, taking off under fire, coming back for more. They offered to evacuate me, said my frostbite was bad enough, that I'd done my part. I looked at Davis, at what was left of our squad, at the Marines still fighting. I'm staying, I said. Don't know why. Loyalty, maybe, stubbornness, or maybe I just didn't know how to stop fighting anymore. We resupplied at Hagaruri, got ammunition, got some food, first hot meal in 9 days, got new boots, though my feet were so frostbitten I could barely feel them. Then we kept moving south, still 40 miles to go, still thousands of Chinese between us and safety. The fighting got worse. The Chinese knew we were escaping. They threw everything at us, hit us day and night, tried to cut the convoy, tried to stop us. But we didn't stop, couldn't stop. We'd come too far, lost too much. We were getting out or dying trying. We fought through Kotori, fought through Funchulin Pass, where the bridge had been blown. Engineers built a new bridge under fire, dropped sections by parachute, assembled them while Chinese shells landed around them. We crossed on frozen metal while bullets pinged off the sides. Guys fell off that bridge, just slipped on the ice, fell into the gorge. We could hear them hit bottom, could hear them screaming if the fall didn't kill them. Kept moving, had to. The convoy couldn't stop. I was beyond exhausted by then, beyond cold, beyond pain, running on nothing, empty, hollow, but still moving because that's all I knew how to do. Davis collapsed on day 13, just fell down in the road. I dragged him to a truck. He tried to resist. Leave me, he said. Save yourself. Shut up, Corporal, I told him. Marines don't leave Marines. Got him on a truck. Probably saved his life. He'd have frozen if I'd left him. We reached Chinhung-ni on day 14. The fighting was still heavy, but we were getting close. Close to the coast. Close to safety. Close to surviving this nightmare. The Chinese hit us one last time. Major attack. Everything they had left, trying to stop us before we could escape. We fought them for 6 hours, used up all our ammunition, fixed bayonets, charged, hand-to-hand combat on a frozen road in North Korea. I don't remember much of that fight, just fragments. Stabbing, shooting, screaming, blood on ice, bodies everywhere. Chinese and American mixed together in death. When it was over, the Chinese pulled back, broken. We'd broken them. Or maybe they just ran out of men to throw at us. We'd broken them, but they'd broken us too. We reached Hungnam on December 11th. The coast, the evacuation point. Navy ships waiting to take us out. I walked onto that beach and just stood there, staring at the ocean, at the ships, at safety. We'd made it. Somehow, impossibly, we'd made it. Of the roughly 15,000 Marines who'd been at the Chosin Reservoir, we'd gotten most out. Casualties were heavy, thousands dead, thousands more wounded or frostbitten. But we'd brought out our wounded, brought out our equipment, brought out our dead when we could. The 1st Marine Division had fought through 10 Chinese divisions, had fought through 70 miles of mountains in the worst winter in 100 years, had survived when we should have been wiped out. They called it one of the greatest fighting retreats in military history. They said we'd accomplished the impossible. All I knew was that I'd survived, that I'd made it to the ships, that I was leaving this frozen hell. I looked back at the mountains, at the road we'd fought down, at the places where so many had died. Kenny, Jimenez, Sergeant Benson, all the others, they were still up there, frozen in the mountains, left behind because we had no choice. I climbed onto the ship, found a spot below decks, collapsed. For the first time in 17 days, I was warm. And that's when I started shaking. Not from cold, from everything else, from all of it. The fear and exhaustion and horror that I'd pushed down to survive came flooding back. I shook for hours, couldn't stop, couldn't think, couldn't process what we'd been through. A corpsman tried to help, gave me something to calm down. It didn't work. Nothing worked. We'd survived the Chosin Reservoir, but we'd left pieces of ourselves up in those mountains, pieces we'd never get back. The ship sailed south, away from North Korea, away from the cold, away from the Chinese. But I was still there, still in those mountains, still fighting, still freezing, and I always would be. They evacuated us to Japan, field hospital in Yokosuka. They treated the frostbite, the wounds, the injuries, pumped us full of antibiotics and hot food, and told us we were lucky. Lucky. I lost 4 toes on my left foot, 3 on my right, tips of 6 fingers, part of my left ear, all to frostbite. The doctors said I was fortunate. Some guys lost entire hands, entire feet, needed amputations. I didn't feel fortunate. I felt numb, not physically. The frostbite gave me constant pain, burning sensation in my stumps, but emotionally, mentally, I felt nothing. They put me in a ward with other Chosin survivors. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? We'd all been through the same hell. We all had the same haunted look in our eyes. One guy, can't remember his name, would scream every night. Same nightmare, over and over. The nurses would sedate him, but he'd just scream again the next night. Another guy wouldn't eat, said the food was too warm, that it wasn't right, that we should be eating frozen rations. They had to force feed him eventually. I slept with all my blankets off, couldn't stand being warm. It felt wrong, like I was betraying the guys who'd frozen to death. Kenny, Jimenez, all of them. The breaking point came on Christmas Day, 1950. They tried to make it festive in the hospital. Decorations, Christmas dinner, carol singing, trying to give us some normalcy, some cheer. I was sitting in the mess hall, turkey and stuffing and all the trimmings. First real meal in a month. Should have been grateful, but I couldn't eat, couldn't swallow, because I kept thinking about Kenny, about how he'd talked about Christmas back home in Ohio, about the snow and his family and being warm. And now he was frozen in a mountain in North Korea, and I was here eating turkey. I stood up, walked out of the mess hall, kept walking. Didn't know where I was going, just had to move, had to get away. Ended up outside. It was raining, cold rain. I stood there in my hospital gown, barefoot, stumps of my toes on the wet pavement, just letting the rain hit me. That's when it hit. Everything. All at once. I started screaming. Couldn't stop. Screaming at the rain, at God, at nothing. Screaming for Kenny and Jimenez and Sergeant Benson and all the others. Screaming because I was alive and they were dead and it wasn't fair and it didn't make sense. Screaming because I couldn't feel anything anymore except rage and grief and guilt. They had to restrain me, 4 orderlies, dragged me back inside, sedated me, put me in a quiet room by myself. I woke up the next day strapped to a bed. A psychiatrist was there, Navy doctor, asked me questions. How was I feeling? Was I having trouble sleeping? Any violent thoughts? I didn't answer. What could I say? That I was broken? That something fundamental had snapped? That the person I'd been before Chosin was dead, and what was left was just a shell that looked like me? They kept me in that room for a week. Observation. Making sure I wasn't a danger to myself or others. Maybe I was. I don't know. All I knew was that I couldn't go back to normal. Couldn't pretend that what happened at Chosin hadn't happened. Couldn't act like I was the same person. Davis came to visit. He'd lost the eye. Had a patch now. Still recovering from his facial wounds. We sat in silence for 20 minutes. Neither of us knew what to say. Finally, he spoke. You saved my life. On the road. When I collapsed. I shrugged. You'd have done the same. Yeah. Pause. We made it out. Yeah. Another long silence. I can't stop seeing them, he said quietly. The guys we lost. Kenny, Jimenez, all of them. Every time I close my eyes. Me too. Does it get better? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know, and I didn't want to lie to him. He left after that. I heard later he got discharged, medical, went back to Iowa. Don't know what happened to him after that. They released me from observation in January 1951. Said I was fit for duty. Sent me back to the division. They were rebuilding, getting ready to go back into the line. I couldn't do it, couldn't climb back into that uniform and go back to Korea, couldn't face the cold again, couldn't face more death. I told my CO, told him I couldn't function, that something was wrong with me, that I needed help. He was sympathetic but firm. We all went through Chosin, Marine. We all lost friends. You're not special. You're not broken. You're a Marine. You'll do your duty. But I was broken. I knew it even if he didn't. They sent me to a psychiatrist, different one. He diagnosed me with combat fatigue and anxiety reaction to combat. Said I needed rest, recommended light duty stateside. The Marine Corps disagreed, said I was fit for combat, said I'd be going back to Korea with the division. That's when I broke completely. I refused orders, point blank. Told them I wouldn't go back, couldn't go back. Would rather face a court-martial than go back to that frozen hell. They threatened me. Court-martial, brig time, dishonorable discharge, loss of all benefits. I didn't care, couldn't care. The threat of punishment didn't mean anything compared to the thought of going back to Korea, back to the cold, back to watching more friends die. In the end, they compromised. Medical discharge, honorable but medically unfit for duty. PTSD, they'd call it now. Back then, it was just combat fatigue or nervous condition. I was out. Done. No more Marine Corps. No more Korea. I should have felt relieved. Should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt like a coward. Like I'd abandoned my brothers. Like I'd quit when they needed me. The guilt was worse than anything I'd faced at Chosin. I flew home in February 1951, landed in California, set foot on American soil for the first time in over a year. My parents met me at the base. They cried, hugged me, said they were so glad I was home safe. I stood there wooden, couldn't hug them back, couldn't cry, couldn't feel anything. Tom, my mother said, "Are you okay?" I wanted to tell her the truth, that I wasn't okay, that I'd never be okay again, that I'd left more than just toes and fingers in Korea, that I'd left my humanity up in those mountains. But I couldn't say it, couldn't put it into words. "I'm fine, Mom," I lied, "just tired. That was the first lie. There would be thousands more. I'd survived the Chosin Reservoir, survived 17 days of combat in 30 below temperatures, survived when thousands of others didn't. But survival wasn't the same as living. And the person who'd gone to Korea, that 20-year-old kid from New Jersey who didn't know what to do with his life, he'd died up in those mountains. What came home was something else, something broken, something that would spend the rest of its life trying to get warm and failing. The war in Korea continued. The Marines I'd left behind kept fighting, kept dying, and I was home, safe, warm, alive, and I hated myself for it. It's 1987 now. 37 years since the Chosin Reservoir. I'm 57 years old. Been living with this for more than half my life. The physical damage never fully healed. Lost toes mean I walk with a limp. Lost fingers make simple tasks difficult. The frostbite damage causes constant pain, burning, aching, especially when it's cold. And I'm always cold. Always. Even in summer. Even in the heat. There's a cold inside me that never goes away. But the physical damage was nothing compared to what it did to my mind. I came home in 1951 and tried to build a normal life. Got a job at a warehouse. Manual labor. Didn't require much thinking. Just show up, move boxes, go home. That's all I could handle. Couldn't hold it long. The noises, forklifts backfiring, metal clanging, sounded too much like gunfire. I'd hit the floor, dive for cover that wasn't there. My co-workers thought I was crazy. They were right. Tried other jobs, factory work, construction, delivery driver. Couldn't keep any of them. Same problems, loud noises, crowds, confined spaces. Anything that reminded me of Korea sent me spiraling. The nightmares never stopped. 37 years, and I still dream about Chosin every single night. Still see Kenny freezing to death. Still see Jimenez screaming while they cut off his arm. Still see the Chinese coming in waves. Still feel the cold. I wake up every morning convinced I'm still there. Takes me minutes to remember where I am. That I'm home. That I'm safe. That it's over. Except it's not over. Not for me. Winter is the worst. When the temperature drops, when snow falls, I can't function. Can't leave the house. Can't handle being cold. It brings everything back. The panic. The terror. The certainty that I'm going to freeze to death. I've spent entire winters locked in my apartment with the heat cranked up to 80 degrees, wearing multiple layers, still shivering, still feeling that Korean cold in my bones. I tried relationships. Met a woman in 1955, Mary, good woman, patient, tried to understand. We dated for a year. She wanted to get married. I couldn't do it, couldn't commit to anything, couldn't plan for a future because I didn't believe in futures anymore, didn't believe I deserved one. She left. Can't blame her. Who wants to be with someone who's more ghost than man? Been alone ever since. It's easier. Can't hurt anyone else with my damage. The VA tried to help. Therapy, medication, support groups. Some of it helped. Most of it didn't. How do you explain to someone who wasn't there what it's like? How do you make them understand that you're still fighting a battle that ended 37 years ago? I met other Chosin survivors over the years. We'd recognize each other without words. That look in the eyes, that understanding. We'd share a drink, share silence, share the weight of memories that won't fade. Some of them did okay. Found ways to cope, built families, careers, lives. I'm happy for them, really. They deserve it. Others didn't make it. Suicide, alcoholism, drugs. Couldn't handle the weight, couldn't carry it anymore. I understand that too. There've been times, dark times, when I've thought about it, about ending it, about finally getting warm in whatever comes after. But I haven't. Don't know if it's courage or cowardice. Maybe both. Maybe I'm just too stubborn to quit, too Marine to give up. Or maybe I feel like I owe it to the ones who didn't make it. Kenny, Jimenez, Sergeant Benson, all of them. They died up in those mountains. The least I can do is keep living, even if it's not much of a life. I think about them every day. Wonder what they'd be doing if they'd survived. Kenny would be 55 now, probably married. Kids, grandkids maybe, living in Ohio, living a normal life. Instead, he's frozen in a mountain in North Korea, 22 years old forever. The guilt never goes away. Survivor's guilt, they call it. Like naming it makes it better. It doesn't. Why did I survive? Why me and not Kenny? Why me and not Jimenez? There's no answer. It's just random. Just chance. But that doesn't make it feel any less like I stole their lives by continuing to breathe. People thank me for my service sometimes. See the Marine Corps cap I wear? Shake my hand, say they're grateful. I nod, say thank you. But inside I'm thinking, grateful for what? That I went to Korea and watched my friends die? That I came back broken and useless? That I've spent 37 years unable to function in normal society? What's there to be grateful for? The Korean War is called the Forgotten War. Most Americans don't even know we fought there. Don't know about Chosin. Don't know what we went through. Maybe that's better. Maybe being forgotten is easier than being remembered for the wrong reasons. They made us heroes. Said we accomplished the impossible at Chosin. Said we fought with courage and honor. Said we upheld the finest traditions of the Marine Corps. And it's all true. We did fight. We did survive. We did accomplish something remarkable. But they don't talk about the cost, about the men who froze to death, about the ones who came home broken, about the fact that we left parts of ourselves up in those mountains and never got them back. They talk about the glory, not the horror, the victory, not the nightmares, the courage, not the fear that never goes away. I'm 57 years old, been living in a studio apartment in Newark for 20 years. Live on disability, barely scrape by. No family, no career, no life beyond existing day to day. This is what survival looks like. This is what coming home means for some of us. The Marine Corps taught me a lot. Taught me discipline, loyalty, how to fight, how to survive, how to keep moving when everything in you wants to give up. But Chosin taught me something else. Taught me that some things break you in ways you can't fix. That some experiences change you so fundamentally that you can never go back to who you were. That survival doesn't mean you won. Sometimes it just means you get to keep carrying the weight. I look at kids today, 20-year-olds going about their lives, and I can't relate to them. Can't understand their concerns, their priorities, their innocence. There's a gulf between us that can't be crossed. Because I know things they don't. I've seen things they haven't. I've been to a frozen hell and came back different. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd died at Chosin. If one of those bullets had found me. If I'd frozen to death like Kenny. If I'd been in one of those trucks that went over the edge. Would it have been better, quicker, cleaner? A death in combat instead of this slow death of the soul? I don't know. Can't know. All I know is that I survived. That I'm here. That I wake up every morning and face another day of carrying this weight. 37 years, 13,505 days since the Chosin Reservoir. I've counted every one, and I'll count every day until I die. Until I can finally stop being cold. Until I can finally rest. They say Marines never die, they just go to hell and regroup. I've been to hell. It's a frozen reservoir in North Korea in November 1950, and I've been regrouping ever since, still regrouping, still trying to figure out how to live with what I've seen, what I've done, what I've survived. The other day, someone asked me, young kid, reporter doing a story on Korean War veterans, asked me if I'd do it again. If I'd go back to Korea knowing what I know now, if I'd enlist again, I thought about it, really thought about it. And I said yes, not because it was worth it, not because I'm glad I went, but because if I didn't go, someone else would have. And maybe they'd have died where I survived. Maybe Kenny would have lived if I'd been the one to freeze. Maybe the math would have worked out differently. I don't know. Can't know. But I'd go again because Marines don't leave Marines. And even though I couldn't save them, even though they died anyway, at least I was there. At least they didn't die alone. That's something. Not much, but something. I'm 57 years old. I've been cold for 37 years. I've been broken for 37 years. I've been living a half-life for 37 years. But I'm still here, still standing, still Marine, still carrying the weight of Chosin, still carrying the memory of the men who didn't make it, still trying to honor their sacrifice by continuing to breathe even when it hurts. They're buried up in those mountains, frozen in the ground, lost in a forgotten war in a forgotten place. But I remember them every day, every night, every moment of cold. I remember. And as long as I'm alive, they're not forgotten. That's all I have left. That's all I can give them, memory. Kenny Benson from Ohio, Jimenez from Texas, Sergeant Benson from Alabama, and all the others whose names I carry. I'm still here, still fighting, not against the Chinese anymore, against the cold inside me, against the memories, against the weight, still fighting, still a Marine, Semper Fi.